Rainha from Savvy Cat Realty here. Savvy Cat Realty is a company that helps expats relocate to Portugal and supports them in the whole process from visa to choosing a location to buying a property and getting settled. We also support with renovations and constructions and are an all-in-one stop for anyone looking to move to Portugal. We have services for both rentals and purchases. Do take a look at our website at www.savvy.catrealty.com or send us an email at contact@savvycatrealty.com and we will see how to help you. We are very concerned about sustainability in all ways, and because of that, our staff work, especially admin staff, works from Mondays to Fridays from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Portuguese time. So please don't find it strange if you don't get a reply on weekends or holidays. Other than that, we are usually very fast to reply. So today I am going to talk to you about investments in real estate in Portugal 2022 and how the market is compared to last year. Last year I did a video like this, and I must say that a lot changed since then, so it was important to do an updated video on how the market is at the present time. Some things unfortunately did not change, and those are not the good ones. The bad ones, the ones that didn't change are the ones that weren't good from the start, so that's not a fortunate part. But I'm going to do a small update on how the market operates. That part mostly hasn't changed. Existence of buyer agencies has increased, which is a good thing, and the existence of exclusivity on the market has also increased, which is also a good thing, because the way that the Portuguese market operates is that a lot of agencies don't operate with exclusivity and they hire pretty much anyone, which leads to a lot of unqualified and untrained people on the market, and the houses that are listed without exclusivity do tend to have a bidding war of agents going on, and it creates a lot of chaos both for the sellers and for the buyers, because the sellers get flooded with people calling them, and it's terrible for the buyers because situations like the house being sold and one agent not knowing about it happens. And for example, you go for a viewing, and at the end of the viewing the agent gets a call and it's not available anymore because another agent sold it. So overall, the lack of exclusivity on the market tends not to be a good thing. From the seller's perspective, people tend to think here in Portugal that it's not a good thing to have exclusivity. And I confess, I used to fall into that trap too. And that's because of the unfortunately high presence of incompetence on the market. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving exclusivity to someone that I didn't know would make a good job. And it had happened in the past to my family. People just we giving exclusivity to an agent and pretty much being stuck for 6 months because nothing happened in the meantime and no one made an effort to sell. So that is obviously a very annoying situation that happened often and led to sellers being very uncomfortable with giving exclusivity. And also from a seller perspective, the first time you think about it, if there's more people selling your property, it seems like a better thing, right? More people selling it, more people showing it. But as someone who did that, it's not such a good thing, because in the end you get flooded with contacts and your phone is constantly ringing about agents asking things and making offers, and they don't cross information between them, and it becomes kind of chaos. So what I've learned is that it's a good thing to give exclusivity to someone you trust, but it's definitely a good idea to vet whether it's as a buyer or as a seller. Do make build a rapport with that person before you give them exclusivity, so the risk of being stuck decreases. So this is one of the things that still happens in the market in 2022 and has not changed since 2021. I've made a blog post about this recently, explaining how the market operates and why this is a problem and how the agencies operate, to just know people that are on the outside understand why they run into some problems. You will be able to check that blog post to see things in more detail, but it will be talking about how agencies operate and what are the good practices and the bad practices, and then also we'll be explaining the way we work, because I work in a completely different way from any other agency. I haven't found anyone that works the same way I do so far. So, regarding the things that actually did change from 2021 to 2022, one of the things that happened is that prices are no longer as negotiable as they were last year. One of the things that happened last year is, because of COVID, the foreign presence on the market dropped drastically. And because the foreign presence on the market dropped drastically, sellers that didn't want to wait until the pandemic ended to sell their houses were willing to take much lower offers, because they realized the pandemic wasn't going to go away as fast as they hoped. So during the pandemic, there was a big negotiation margin, and things were commonly dropped for up to 40%, although 40% is a very rare case, but it wouldn't be uncommon to negotiate 20 to 30% down. Nowadays, that is much, much harder, and it's going to get even harder, because as we walk out of this pandemic, the presence on and the activity on the market keeps rising. And there are more and more buyers on the market, which means there is a lot more. It will get into a point where there will be more demand than offer. In a lot of places that is already happening, which makes it much harder to negotiate. And when you do have a good negotiation margin is when you have situations that demand very specific measures. For example, right now, I'm working with a client in a property that has a situation with town hall that requires a license, and this license can take up to 8 months to be emitted, and the seller does not want to wait 8 months to sell the house, which means they cannot sell the house to anyone asking for a mortgage, because the bank won't approve that mortgage without this paperwork that needs to go through town hall. So, in this situation, we have a very motivated seller because they have a tricky situation on their hands and they want to sell fast. So in this kind of situations, you have a much better negotiation margin. However, this is the exception and not the rule. It is, however, very important to understand exactly what the situation is with the property you are looking to purchase. One of the things we always look to do is understanding what the fitting is for the sale. Is it an inheritance and all the inheritors are wanting to sell? Is it a couple getting divorced? Is it a family moving to a bigger house? Is it someone that needs cash fast? This makes a lot of difference on the negotiations you can do. And it's very important to understand what is happening on that side also, because it can have a lot of problems. One of the very common problems in the Portuguese real estate market is lack of due diligence. So more often than not, there is missing documentation on the seller side, and that can be extremely frustrating. Even when we have deals closed, it can take a very long time to get all the paperwork in order, and sometimes things are even not properly arranged between sellers. We had situations in the past where it was a couple that was selling, and they were married, and the husband put the house on the market without the wife's knowledge. So once our clients wanted to go forward with an offer, the husband finally told the wife that he was going to sell this house, and the wife didn't agree. So basically they weren't able to buy the house because the decision makers weren't in agreement and no one could get anywhere. The same thing can happen with inheritances, and it's very frustrating on the Portuguese market how often things like this will happen. and you get to the offer making phase, and the situation like someone not agreeing to sell pops up, or an important document that makes everything impossible pops up. So this is unfortunately common. Another situation that is very annoying is that there are a lot of ads on the market that are no longer available. This is a bad strategy, or an annoying strategy from real estate agencies to get leads. So often they do this on purpose. They leave ads up that are no longer available because they want to get the leads in. Sometimes it's not on purpose, and it's the whole not exclusive thing where they just don't know another agency has sold it, and once you contact them, they contact the original agency or the owner, and the owner will say, oh no, it's already been sold. So this is also a very common annoying problem on the Portuguese market. So overall, the whole situation of the market being extremely deorganized remains, and things are slowly improving with exclusivity, with the increase of exclusivity, but overall there's still a lot of very annoying things happening. And unfortunately, the negotiation margins are going down due to the increase of buyer demand. Another thing that is changing right now is that bank fees are quickly increasing. So back in the early 2021, the mortgage fees were at an all-time lower. They were spreads of 1, which is really, really low. And they have been quickly rising lately. I think right now it's normal to have 1.4, 1.5. And this has been happening mostly in the past 3 months. So it's we don't know yet how much they will rise, but it's not looking very attractive. So right now, if you want to ask for a loan, it's probably better to do it soon, because these things usually peak on the high season. So that's June, July, August, and that's when there are the most buyers on the market. And then usually they calm down a bit, but there is a huge wave coming for summer 2022 of buyers on the market, because there's a lot of people that were stuck during COVID and are just feeling comfortable to make this big change now. So that is something to take into consideration. And if you do want to get in the market, I do advise doing it sooner than later, because it's going to get saturated pretty soon. Regarding places to invest, that also didn't change that much from 2021. Prices are rising, but they haven't risen as drastically yet. We do have situations that can be interesting, because there was a mortgage protection going on during COVID that ended in September. And I do have contacts with some banks and credit mediators, and there is murmuring that a lot of houses are going to get into the market from pawning, from bank takeovers. And my predictions is that those houses are going to fly. The banks seem to be quite worried that they're going to have a lot of property on their hands, but they're not going to be losing out for sure, because there is also a lot of buyers on the market, and bank properties tend to be very attractively priced and very attractive for mortgages too. So usually those fly really fast. I work with a credit mediator who has access to bank databases on houses, and the houses that go from the bank have been staying like a month, if so much, on mine, and then they just go. So that's another thing to have into account that can be interesting, but you do have to act fast on it. So regarding the pricing, the things haven't changed so much. Lisbon remains to be overpriced, but the prices are no longer rising. They have kind of reached the plateau and have been stable for a while now. And I don't think they will rise a lot, because they are already very unsustainable for the locals. Gentrification is very strong in Lisbon right now. It's very hard for a local to afford buying a house in Lisbon, and that's obviously not sustainable. So I don't think the prices will be rising a lot more. That does bring me to another topic, that is the golden visas. So as you know, the golden visas have changed, and the policies have changed for the golden visas, and it's no longer possible to invest in residences in high density areas. High density areas have been set by population density, and I do think that they were a bit excessive with the exclusions, because there were many areas that could benefit a lot from golden visa investment that have been excluded because of the population density. And as an example, I would talk about Caldas de Rainha and some areas around Aveiro that could be very interesting. Most of the northern coast has been excluded, and also a big part of the southern coast. A lot of coastal areas, most of the coastal areas have been excluded, and it is a bit excessive. I think it was important for big cities like Porto and Lisbon, and the locations in the Algarve that were getting a lot of very high investment and creating a huge gap. It was important to kind of put a break on that, but they overdid it a bit because they excluded areas that could benefit from this kind of investment. However, it is still possible to invest in non-residential property in any area. So if you are buying, I don't know, a hotel, a business, an Airbnb, it is still possible to qualify for a golden visa. It's just not possible for residential purposes. And most people use the residential purposes because you do have to have an address. And, well, it's just practical, to get the golden visa through the house that is going to be your address. So that's one of the situations right now. And all this to say that the cities are growing, and but Erika is going to make the golden visa blog post that we have show up somewhere on the screen too, once the YouTube video is up. And I was going to talk about the growing cities. We also have a blog post about the real estate market trends 2021 to 2022, analyzing the statistics and the trends of the market with numbers. And that post is also getting posted somewhere on the comments and on the YouTube, so you can check that out because it's very useful information. And in there, you will be easily able to see why I say that it's very interesting to invest in medium and smaller cities. Lisbon, like I said, has also already reached the plateau. Porto, however, it's rapidly rising, but has still room to rise, and the average price is still very significantly lower than Lisbon. However, it's very obvious how much it is growing in the past few years, and it's going to peak a bit more until it reaches the plateau. So right now it's a very good time to invest in Porto because you are somewhere in the middle of the rising streak. So it's a good time to get in. However, if you go to smaller cities like Braga, Coimbra, Castelo Branco, Évora, there's a number of them, and I talk about that on the real estate investment trends blog post too. It is an even better time to get in because the rising streak is down here, and it will be getting somewhere here. So it's very, very interesting to talk about this, to invest in this kind of medium-sized cities, because in a space of 5 to 10 years, it's very likely that the prices are going to double. That also applies to surroundings of growing cities like Porto and Lisbon. It has been rising very fast. The whole Lisbon metropolitan area is already a bit crazy, but there is some areas that are still rising. Regarding buying for investment, there are several ways to invest in property. One of the ways is to buy property to rent out. And this can be a very good model because the rental market is completely crazy right now. There is so much more demand than offer, and it's pretty easy to rent anything anywhere. The only thing about buying for rental is that you have to be very careful with who you rent to, because the tenant protection laws here in Portugal are very tight, and it can put landlords in a difficult situation. And that's one of the reasons it can be sometimes hard to rent as a foreigner, as an expat, because landlords won't feel as comfortable because you don't have guarantees in the country that they can, just have. But that works both ways. And like I said, one of the issues is that there is so much more demand than offer. So there is just, when you put an ad up, you will have like 10 people calling you in the space of 2 hours, and landlords can just take their peak. And that can be problematic as a tenant, but obviously as someone looking to invest and rent out, that is a very interesting situation that can be exploited. Another very popular investment in real estate model is buying for resale. And to buy for resale, there are a number of ways to doing this. And one of the very smart way to do this is to buy an older property or historical property, renovated, divided into an apartments, because here in Portugal you have a vertical property. This means that the whole building is a unit, and then you have horizontal property, which means each apartment inside the building is a unit. So in order to convert any kind of building from vertical to horizontal, you always have to go through the licensing process, which is a slow process. The slowness of it depends on where you are going to do it. In the Lisbon area, it is particularly terrible. The townhouses are particularly terribly slow. Also in Caldas, Rainha, and Caldas, it's particularly terribly slow. In the north area, the townhouses have been making an effort to making things faster to attract investors, and you can get things approved between 6 and 9 months, which is much nicer. In the down south, it can be sometimes 1 to 2 years to get anything through on town hall. So let's hope that that gets better soon. There has also been talk of the government of facilitating visas and so on, so that it will also attract more foreigners. The whole SAF situation has been a mess, but I will make another video about that. So, I was telling about the investment for resale models. One of them is to do a renovation or a construction, which is a slower return on investment and does require you to put the money in before you get it back. But when you get it back, it tends to have a pretty good return. I do have a few investor clients, and we have been working with very good models. Of course, this also depends a lot on the property. But as a savvy person, one of the things I like to do is to find very good deals for them. And then we help them in the whole process and calculate the expected profits and so on. And this can be a very good model in these growing cities because the prices for sale are not going down. And besides the renovating or construction model, you also have the living it be model. So basically, you buy a property, you rent it out for a few years, you get the rental income during that time, and in 5-year time, the natural valuation will happen, and you can sell it for a profit anyway. So overall, investing in Portugal in real estate right now is a very good option if you do it smartly and if you don't overpay. And we are here to help you figure out how to do that. So, I think I talked about most of the topics I wanted to talk about today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to make them now. I am not good at stalling, so I tend to disappear once I run out of things to say. So if you do have any questions for me, now is the time to make them. I'm just going to review here. Oh, there's something else I want to talk about, but I'm going to do that in the end. So the topics I talked about today is how the market operates, Like I said, there is the blog post detailing about that on the comments right now. I talked about negotiations in trends and how the prices are not as negotiable as they were last year. I'll talk about the growing medium-sized cities and cities like Porto that are big but still with a room. I talked about investment models, and I talked about how the bank and loans have how the conditions to get bank loans have not improved since last year. On the contrary. So another thing that I had to talk about for this year is how how the war affects the real estate market. I don't think the war will have a negative impact on the Portuguese real estate market. This is because Portugal is still one of the safest locations within Europe that you can get to. And I think that will increase the amount of European investors in the Portuguese market. And there are a lot of European investors on the Portuguese market already. And it is literally on the other end of Europe. So it is, unless this escalates to a full global war, Portugal is still a very, very safe place to be. And as some of you already know, Portugal is considered the third safest country in the world. We are just below New Zealand and Sweden in regards to safety. And we are very politically stable. Well, Portuguese politicians tend to stay out of trouble as much as they can. They will kind of be the Switzerland and just stand on the middle ground wherever they can and stay out of conflict, which is a good thing in regards to safety. So in general, I don't see the market being affected by the war, and if it is affected by the war, it's not going down, it's going up. So this is the relevant trends and updates that I wanted to mention for the 2022 real estate market video. The blog posts that I think are the most relevant regarding the topics I mentioned will be appearing somewhere here. If you wish to work with us, Savvy Cat Realty offers a very different service, and we support everything from visa to investment to choosing location, and we work countrywide. If you just have an ideal or an objective and you are not particularly concerned about location, we are probably the best people to help you. I have agents from north to south, and we are expanding. I will soon have my team complete and have agents covering the whole country, and we are able to support you choosing a location anywhere in the country and advise you on where the best location is for your specific needs, and then of course support you in the whole process of getting settled. If you do wish to contact us to know more about how this happens, feel free to check our website at www.savvycatrealty.com or send an email to contact@savvycatrealty, where my lovely administrative Katia will back to you pretty quickly, because I'm actually a very slow replier. She's the one in charge of the main box, but she is lovely and she has been working with me for a very long time. So you can trust that she will be able to answer your questions. And if for some reason she isn't, she always asks me and still answers them. So don't worry about that. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions or suggestions of things you would like to hear from me, feel free to leave them in the comments and we will come back to you. We always reply to all comments, whether it's live or not. Okay, so I think this is all for today. I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and I will see you all again next week. Bye now.